What's up, everybody? Welcome to With All Due Respect. I'm Marcus Flowers, and that's our good friend, Madeline Summerville. How's it going, Maddie?
Hey, I'm doing great, Marcus. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay. It's been a crazy week already. Had a crazy last week. Sorry I missed everybody
I
last
am
week.
too.
We both had issues. I was traveling. Maddie had some issues going on. So our good friend Joe Walsh filled in for us, and that was great. We appreciate him. Thanks
Definitely.
again, Joe. So, everybody, this is a show where we cut through all the noise, call out the nonsense, and actually talk about what's happening. Not the version that you're going to get in press releases, and definitely not the version you're going to get from people who think that yelling is a substitute for leadership. Every week, we bring you real conversations with real people who are in the fight, candidates, organizers, experts, folks who aren't just talking about change, but who are actually getting out there and making it happen. And then we break down the headlines because let's be honest about it. The news cycle, it's a lot. War, politics, culture, they all seem to be colliding right now, and somebody's got to make sense of it. So whether you're here to stay informed, or get fired up, or just hear somebody say what you've been thinking all week, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. And today we've got a returning guest, one of our good friends who's now the nominee for the Democratic Party in Arkansas's 3rd Congressional District, longtime friend of the show, Robb Ryerse. Hey,
Hey
Robb.
there.
Hey,
It's
Rob.
good to see you both. Thanks for having me back on.
Oh, thanks for being with us once again. And we really appreciate you for coming back and being with us and bringing us an update on what's been going on in your race lately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, let's get into it. Maddie, go ahead and run with it.
Okay. So, Rob, thank you so much for being here. I'm Maddie, and I have just started recently helping Marcus out here interviewing some folks who we really hope win their seats. Um, because it's something that we genuinely believe in, and we're very grateful that you're here. So, wanted to start off by getting personal because that's always the fun way to do it. So, tell us what the spark was to get you interested in running. Let's start there.
Yeah. I ran for Congress back in 2018 um, because I was horrified about Donald Trump being elected president. Horrified that the tribes that I had always been a part of were responsible for him. Growing up as an evangelical Christian, I grew up a Republican, and to see the support that he had with those two groups just kind of blew my mind. And that led me to get involved and ultimately to run for Congress back in 2018. It was an interesting experience, learned a lot. And I guess, time's a flat circle, Donald Trump gets elected president again, so I'm running for Congress again. But ultimately for me, seeing how Donald Trump has been conducting himself through, especially the first quarter of the first year of his presidency, to see that, his most dangerous and divisive ideas were not, campaign bluster, but were actually stuff that was happening. I decided, kind of surveying the landscape, that the best way to stop Donald Trump's agenda is to flip Congress. And, what we need more than anything else is a Congress that's willing to be a check and balance on the president. And my congressperson wasn't doing that, as many others around the country aren't. And I said, listen, this is not okay. And decided to jump back in. But this is bigger than just Donald Trump. It's really about making sure that the people of this district have someone who will represent them in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
Because, we have a congressperson who's not a representative. He's a lackey for Donald Trump. And that doesn't help the people in this district at all. And And I'm running because I think they deserve to have someone who will actually represent them.
I think it's the same in a lot of districts across this country right now, Rob.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a couple things that you said that I'd love to touch on. And I know that it's particularly relevant because of the fun religious issues that we've been dealing with. And by fun, I mean horribly disrespectful. So a couple of things that you mentioned. You said that, sorry, it just clicked off. You said that you wanted to be a good representative from the evangelical community. Are you, tell us about your background in the evangelical community.
Yeah, I've spent 30 years as a pastor. I grew up, I'm a son of a pastor, the grandson of a pastor, and I, went into the family business, so to speak. And I've spent the last 30. I grew up in a Baptist denomination up north where we weren't allowed to have anything to do with Southern Baptists because they were too liberal. Just to like put it on the spectrum.
That's a qualifier.
We were way over there.
Yeah.
And my wife and I, after pastoring in that denomination for 10 years, went through a deconstruction, a transformation in our beliefs and how we see the world, and how we understand God, and our political beliefs, evolved right along with that because it's all tied up together. And so I, have been pastoring and continue to pastor what we call a progressive evangelical church here in Northwest Arkansas, a church that my wife and I started. And I've spent the last 8 years working with an organization called Vote Common Good that tries to be a bit of a counterbalance to the religious right, give people of faith, particularly white evangelicals, white Catholics, white mainline Protestants, an on-ramp to engage in politics differently, and to use the common good as their voting criteria instead of what's in it for me and who's going to give me the biggest tax cut. And, and so I've been very involved in the relationship between church and state, faith and politics, trying to be a voice that talks very candidly about the threat of Christian nationalism, which I think is maybe the biggest threat out there today to our democracy.
I agree.
Yeah. So, this has been my life doing this kind of stuff. And I really, went from being, growing up essentially in a Christian nationalist house and a Christian nationalist church, and going, completely the other side of things as I've grown and learned and matured and aged.
I'm super curious because I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish day school, but my mom converted to Judaism after she grew up Pentecostal. So actually it's funny because it really wasn't that much of a change for her because it was still very religious. But now my mom is Reformed Jewish and her husband is, and they're very happy there. And I call myself a Jew because I was born that way, and I feel like we can't really afford to lose any of us right now who loves Jesus. So she had her reconstruction, I had mine. What was the spark that led to your sort of reconstruction? Because my hero is Jimmy Carter. I know he had one of his, and he's a political figure as well. So I'm just curious what what sparked that as well.
Yeah, it was like I woke up on my 30th birthday and all of the answers I was given just stopped making sense.
Really?
And I was pastoring a church in Michigan at the time and was preparing to preach through the book of Genesis. And I just had these thoughts of why is it that the voice in Genesis 1 and the voice in Genesis 2 sound like two different voices, like they're not describing the same thing? Or, questions like that just which might, for somebody might sound like, well, what's the big deal in that? No, that's calling into account the whole creation story.
Yeah.
And whether or not it literally happened. And, You know, there's a whole approach in like the Christianity that I grew up in, like, you know, if you deny the 7-day creation story, like, you know, you might as well believe that Jesus didn't rise from the dead, you know, like it's all of that stuff's connected. And so, you know, I knew that if I even asked the questions out loud that I was having in my head, I would have been fired as the pastor of that church.
Yeah.
And that drove, and, you know, and then asking the question about hell and like the reality of, like, is there really eternal conscious torment for people who don't believe a certain way? And really kind of grappling with that. And so ultimately it became untenable for me to stay. And that at first led me to be pretty depressed. I went through a rough time.
Yeah.
That dark night of the soul, man.
Yes. Especially because I was faking it, because I had to say words on Sunday morning that I didn't really believe so that I, you know, wouldn't lose my job. And then ultimately my wife and I said, like, hey, we can't do this anymore. And we moved halfway across the country and said goodbye to all of our friends and started a new church. And we've been here for 20 years.
So, you know, that fear that you're talking about. I read Tim Alberta's book, The Power of the Kingdom.
I was just going to mention that.
Glory. Yeah, I read that book. And that backlash, not only did he receive that backlash for, you know, kind of questioning, and, you know, he kind of spilled the beans on the Southern Baptist Convention and all of that. You know, he talked about that backlash. And, you know, I've talked about in past campaigns how that fear that people feel for, you know, stepping out of, let's call it the tribe, or in a more real sense, MAGA, or this Christian nationalism that's taken hold nowadays. That fear is real, and it's justified, because
for sure
it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
So part of me understands that, you know, but I'll also always talk about personal courage and, you know, having the conviction.
It's so hard, like, when you talk about the courage piece of it too, because I feel like our politicians have weaponized specifically like the structure that people have in their mind of what it means to be a good person. Like the way that I've been taught my entire life means that I'm like that I've been taught to be a good person.
Right.
I'm trying to be loyal to, right? So I literally have to undo that and undo the identity that I have and my conception of what it means to be good. You know, so like that even has to get flipped. So you have to stop, you have to let go of that loyalty piece first, which is a good part of you. And for me, like that's what started the whole Dark Knight thing. So I totally
I'd love to share 3 thoughts that are connected to all of this. One related to that idea of identity. One of the things that we found through our work at Vote Common Good is that identity change happens very slowly and is very difficult to make happen. And if our work is primarily persuading people to change how they think about themselves and their identity, that's going to be a real heavy lift and a slow go.
It truly is.
Behavioral change happens a lot more quickly. And what we found is that people are willing to make exceptions based on, you know, so they'd say something like, I would never vote for a Democrat, but I would vote for Robb. And that exception, that permission structure. And what happens that people don't realize is, as soon as that first domino falls, as soon as like the gate opens, like the horses aren't going back in the barn, you know, like the train has left the station.
Wow.
And so, you know, one of the things I say to people on the campaign trails, I say, listen, I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. I'm asking you to vote for me in this election, and trying to give that permission structure, because changing somebody's identity is really, really difficult. But people are willing to make exceptions on the basis of their behavior. So that's one thing.
People voted for Trump and AOC.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Another thought is, I think it's so critical for us. There's two things, but people that have already gotten there and people that are still in MAGA or thinking about leaving MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
There are people going through a political identity crisis right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is they often go quiet first and they struggle with it in their minds. And then eventually they'll begin to question things and say it out loud and make a break. And I think there's two things I think that are critical for people that are in relationship with people that are going through that. And the trigger can be anything. Trigger could be, for some people it was the Access Hollywood tapes back in 2016, and some people it was, the Jesus doctor meme that he posted a couple days ago, and a whole host of things in between those two events.
There's been so many lines crossed that,
Yes, yeah, and what I all the time I get asked the question of like, well, what's the thing that's going to get Christians to stop supporting Donald Trump? And the reality is there's no one thing, because if there was, it would have happened by now. But each of these things shaves off a little bit of his support. And so when you're in relationship with someone who's been a supporter of Donald Trump, who's now in the midst of an identity crisis, there's two things that are critical. One is the grace to not say, I told you so, or what took you so long. And listen, if you feel that way, say it to one of your friends. Don't say it to the person who's in the midst of questioning and changing, because the last thing we want is to it's like the parent who criticizes their daughter's boyfriend and just makes him her love him more. We don't want to do that. Like, you just keep your mouth shut and let this person go through the process.
And
that's one way. I think it's so easy for us as Democrats to get like all high and mighty, like, oh, well, we knew all along. What took you so long? And that's the word, like, that nobody likes to feel shame and guilt. We're trying to win elections here. We're not trying to win arguments.
That's one of the things that I used to talk to people about on the campaign trail, and I've talked to young Democrats and other Democrats and people who are thinking about running for office. When you approach, because you're in Georgia, you're going to come across people who are hardcore MAGA, who are on the fence, or what I'll call normal Republicans or whatever. You got to remember, these people have gotten these ideas and that tribe, that identity politics and Christian nationalism. It came from people that they loved and trusted.
Yes.
Their parents, teachers, pastors, so forth and so on. So you're asking them to break from that.
Yes.
And I tell people, manage your expectations, but when you're talking to them, also manage your emotions as well when you're having those conversations, because just yelling and pushing back, it's not always going to work. You got to think about what is it that they're going through, especially if you see that some dominoes are falling and you see that some wheels are turning and they're having that internal conflict a little bit. You got to nurture that along a little bit. That's going to take some time.
Really. And we judge what we don't understand. Exactly. And if you read, and I know we're talking about Tim Alberta's book, and then there's another one that's by Kevin Cruz with a K. And it's which one's The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory?
That's Tim Alberta.
Okay. Then this one is One Nation Under God, I think. And basically between those two books, I learned, they're both on audiobook too.
Yep.
I learned that basically people like a lot of people in the community where my husband grew up, because he grew up in Carrollton, Georgia, across the street from a little white church where his parents got married and his grandparents got married, right? Where the streets are all like the same last name as the people who live there.
It's not far from me. I basically live in Carrollton. So.
Yeah, right. I think you know the high school he went to, where they have been indoctrinated from day one. Right. Yeah. Like you learned that the syllabi came from Jerry Falwell at the White House and trickled down in exchange for tax breaks. Like
Yep.
you learn that from day one. This is what they have believed in their hearts.
If
So,
you haven't
like,
read that book, read it. I'm telling
read
you,
it. Like, and
listeners, read it.
you will stop judging when you understand that this is so honest and real to them. In the same way that we're learning not to judge people in the Middle East who have really negative views of Americans or of Jewish people because we understand that that's what they've been taught and that's what they've seen done to their families. It's the same thing, right? Like there's 0% chance that if my mother-in-law had a hungry immigrant child in front of her, that she would let that child leave without feeding it or taking care of it, right? Like that's never going to happen. But she still would vote for Trump because like everyone in the community believes that that's what they need to do in order to be a good person, you know?
Yep. The other thing I wanted to say too is, people that have been through this, it's so easy to stay quiet because you don't want to risk relationships.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you are thinking this way, if you're having this identity crisis, you're having these questions that are causing you to rethink where you've been, or consider voting for a Democrat for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
It's very likely that other people around you are having those things too. And I like to tell people about, if they're ready, like how important, like the gift of going first. And I think about like the last scene of Dead Poets Society, when Mr. Keating, their English teacher, is leaving the room, and the first boy stands up on his desk and says, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And then there's like boy after boy after boy does that thing. It's that gift of going first, of being the first one to do it, that you open the door for other people to follow. And so I just want to encourage folks that maybe of like, yeah, I'm thinking this, but I haven't gone public with it. Okay. And maybe think about going public with it, because it might be bigger than you. It might be the very thing that somebody in your network, somebody at your work, somebody at your church, somebody in your family, somebody in your neighborhood, they need to hear that. And you can give the gift of going first.
And they needed to see you stand up to encourage them to stand up as well. Now, and this brings me to another question, Rob. And I was going to ask this a different way, but given the conversation that we had, I'm going to ask it this way. How has your experience in community through your church and family life shaped the kind of leader, based on what we've been talking about, shaped the kind of leader you want to be in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah. Boy, that's a great question.
Because we see what's going on there now. We see what leadership looks like there. It's how do you want to be based on?
I think leadership is really rooted in a few things. One is deep integrity. And I think it's absolutely critical. Like somebody asked me yesterday, a conservative Republican friend of mine said to me, he calls me Congressman, just, kind of as a joke. And he says, "Oh, Congressman, you've been able to fix Washington, D.C. yet?" He's like, "Or you got to wait until you get there." And I said to him, "Well, at the very least, 2 dirt bags are gone from Washington, D.C. today." And, I was referencing the resignations of Congressman Swalwell and Congressman Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if you mistreat and sexually assault and rape women, you don't belong in Congress. I don't care what party you're in. Like,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
There is such the lack of integrity, and integrity being this idea of wholeness, of like the ability of these people to disconnect what they've done in their private life from their public life, and to think, I can run for governor of my state with all of this stuff out here, and like nobody's gonna know, nobody's gonna find out. Like, it's a complete disassociation from reality.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need is leaders who are willing to say, like, no, it's integrity isn't that you're perfect. It's that you're self-aware, that you're whole, that you're one.
Yeah.
And we need leaders that will do that. And
Let's make it simple. Integrity is doing the right thing, being who you say you are, even when no one's
Nobody's watching.
yes, totally. Yep. And then the other thing I think is critical is just fundamental compassion.
Yeah.
There's such a lack of empathy that exists. I see it in my opponent at times. See the way he talks to constituents, the way he talks down to them, the way he's just completely unfazed by the needs of people. And there's a couple months ago, I met a little girl here that lives in my district. She's 3.5 years old. She's about to have her 4th open heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
She was born with a rare condition. The surgery's happening next month. About 6 months ago, mom and dad found out that they had lost their Medicaid coverage because they got married. They did the right thing. They got married, and it put their household income level over the threshold by $7. By $7.
Wow.
And these are not freeloaders. Dad works as a mechanic in a Ford dealership. Mom works at a local hospital as a pharmacy tech. She actually has insurance through the hospital that she works at, but the children's hospital where this little girl needs to have her surgery is out of network.
Mm-hmm.
And so this family is having tamale sales to pay for their daughter's open heart surgery.
Wow.
And I'm like, the richest, greatest country in the history of the world, a 3.5-year-old girl who needs to have open heart surgery should be able to have it. And it should not be such a predicament for her parents to support her in the midst of that. And I'll tell you, the crazy thing is not that this story is rare. It's how common it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to have some empathy and some compassion and the courage to act on that and to bring about some fundamental changes that will actually make a difference in people's lives.
Tell me what you think about the label of toxic empathy, or the concept of toxic empathy that Elon Musk and some other folks on the Christian right are pushing.
Yeah, this is this idea that like empathy is a sin. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of ridiculous ideas out there in Christianity, and in especially in popular Christianity that's used to sell books and get clicks and views. I think it's ridiculous. Like, it's empathy is not a sin. And it's like, I'm sorry, just certainly, like, yes, there's like, there that person who becomes so consumed with someone else's needs and problems that they lose themselves.
It doesn't seem like a problem we have generally.
Yes. This is like, straining out gnats and swallowing camels, use the analogy that Jesus used.
Yeah. And I think if you define empathy, which is like a sort of state of knowledge, like of understanding how somebody else feels, right? I think they're missing the definition of it. And it seems like actually what they're trying to do is to take that power away from us, because when you are able to be empathetic, it's an extraordinary power, and they don't have it. They don't have that, because that is something that allows people to trust you immediately. Like, your nervous system calms down when you have somebody who's genuine in front of you that you actually can trust. Like, your nervous system will recognize it even if you don't realize it. And so that's why they don't want us to have it. But I just think it's so interesting, and I'm very interested in what clergy have to say about that. Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what Jesus said. I'm pretty sure he said, if you want to follow me, actually, it's total. You should go bankrupt. You should get rid of all the stuff that you have, right? Because you want to go help people. I'm pretty sure he said like the opposite. But I'm not a member of the clergy, but like I love to talk to them about it because it's just unfathomable to me.
But the way I look at that in like real terms is you got a bunch of billionaires saying things like that. And it may be true that they're never going to experience the things that the other 99% of us are going to experience, like a healthcare issue or, a healthcare emergency or having to scrape together, money at the end of the month just so you can buy groceries or pay bills. So I understand that it may be hard for them to empathize with something like that, but the rest of us can.
Right.
The rest of us can. And the people that are in MAGA or whatever, these Christian nationalists, that are going along with all of these things and saying, yeah, you're right. Like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that you've never struggled, not even a little bit in your day-to-day life? This guy who's a billionaire, maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's had it. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Right.
Donald Trump definitely was. He doesn't know what it's like to go into grocery stores, which, when he was talking about how much it costs or showing ID to buy bread or whatever,
right?
That told you everything you needed to know right there. Of course, this guy can't empathize with you. Everybody knows you don't have to show ID to buy bread or anything. So,
there's something you just can't unsee the reality that people are doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They're doing everything right. They're taking care of their families. They're working hard. They're not lazy. They're not freeloading off the system. They're not welfare queens or spending their SNAP benefits on candy and chips, soda.
This is all to demonize certain people.
People are doing everything right and they're still struggling.
Yeah.
And at some point we've got to stop telling people to try harder, and we've got to start asking, why is it so hard in the first place? And what is it about this system that needs to change?
But the secret is, Rob, the secret is the system is working the way it's supposed to be working.
Yes.
It's benefiting those it is supposed to be benefiting, and the same people keep getting hurt.
Which is why he's running. So you can
it'll always be that way until we the people say enough is enough.
Yes.
And we put in the right leaders.
Right.
We'll start implementing those changes.
Yeah.
We'll start ensuring those checks and balances work the way that they're supposed to work.
And you asked the question about leadership. Having the political courage to do it. Yeah. I was recently asked about protecting the reproductive freedoms of women. And, I talked about that, and I said, it's real easy for us to blame Donald Trump and to blame the Supreme Court for taking away a woman's right to choose. And, that women in America are not as free as they used to be. It's really easy for us to blame the Republicans for that. But we've also got to look in the mirror. Yeah. Republicans have been saying for a generation plus
50 years
that this is what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats have controlled the House and the Senate and the presidency multiple times and have failed to act. They could have codified Roe. They could have enshrined that in law, and they didn't, because they didn't have the political courage to do it, and maybe because they wanted to keep the fundraising issue and to stoke the fears.
And they could have
done the same thing with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act.
Yes,
They could have
100%.
totally persuaded people. Democrats forgot that they needed to be like, hey, if I want you to believe something different than what you were taught, then I have to convince you that it's the right thing. Right. And to me, it's so crazy because I grew up in a sheltered little religious community. And so for me, I just go, oh, wait, no, because my religion says that it's not a life until it's born. So I never even had to think about it.
Right.
And so when I became a speechwriter and I had to think about it, I was just like, no, it's a religious freedom issue, guys. Like it's because your religion defines life differently than mine does. And I couldn't understand why people didn't see it that way. And like, it's the Democrats' job to reframe that stuff, reframe it so that people can understand it. You don't have to reframe it in a way that's false. Reframe the bigger picture, right? Take a step back and show the piece that the other side isn't showing you.
That's
what it's all about.
Yes, absolutely. But and I, I'm so afraid that the same thing's going to happen with ICE, for instance.
Okay.
The Democrats are going to love to campaign against ICE. Love to have that boogeyman to campaign against. And when they actually get into power, what's going to happen? Are we going to continue to fund this organization at these levels that allow it to, run rampant on our streets? Are we going to continue to have an immigration system that, makes it more advantageous to try to cross the desert than it is to fill out some paperwork for the U.S. federal government? Like, are we still going to have this backup of asylum seekers because we would rather build detention centers than have judges who can move people through the process?
That's just a fact.
So are Democrats going to lead? Are they going to act? And if they don't, I'm at the point where Democrats that don't act, that don't lead, they need to go too. Republicans are not the only problem that exists in our political system.
So just
Democrats,
interrupt you. I just wanted to say, just as a speechwriter and as somebody who does political media a lot, if I were you, I would cut what you just said over the last minute and 30 seconds and just put it everywhere. Because
thank you.
Great.
I'm getting mad.
It's honest. It's real.
I feel myself getting worked up when I think about it because it's just like, what are we doing here?
Right.
We've got these Congress people that are they're meeting staffers in hotels. This is how you're spending your time. You're spending your time either you're molesting your staff and abusing your staff, or you're taking the money from the corporations and the billionaires.
Yeah.
And it's just, and meanwhile, I met a dad last Thursday who he was in his 60s. His son has ALS. His adult son developed ALS. And they took him to Mayo Clinic, and the doctors at Mayo prescribed medication for him. And the insurance company refused to pay for it. $11,000 a month is this medication. And this dad is, we're standing at a fundraiser and he's telling me the story, tears streaming down his cheeks. And what are we doing? If our government does not work for the people, what are we even doing?
So I would love to do something with you really fast that I think the audience might like. Okay, let's play this out because I think this is really interesting and you're the exact person I would want to do this with. Okay. Pretend like that person who came up to you at that fundraiser, right, is talking to an evangelical person who's also running for Congress, but is a Republican, right? So I call it the BS legitimate thing as a lawyer, when the other side's making a point that they think is the right one that they're going with, right? What is the response that they would give that they think is legitimate to an honest, hardworking, heartbroken father, right? What is that grounded in morally when they respond and they say, we can't fund that because X?
what it fundamentally comes down to is a belief that the purpose of government is very limited, and it's to provide for the national defense and preserve freedom and very little else. And what's frustrating to me is that is a philosophy that is more, to these folks, that is more important than people. And I think,
very true.
Listen, people are important, and the question about how are we going to pay for it? Well,
paying for things is not the problem.
Nobody's asking that question about what we're doing in Iran, because they know that it's not, the federal government pays for whatever it wants to pay for.
Yes.
It's a sovereign issuer of currency. It pays for whatever it wants to pay for. It's not a matter of how are we going to pay for it. It's what are we going to pay for? What kind of society do we want to live in?
So it sounds like you just said it was priorities.
Yes, it's priorities. And we have politicians in DC that would rather live in a world at war than at a world where people are getting the health care they need.
There it is.
And they have housing, and they live in they're getting education, and they are thriving, like they don't have to work 3 jobs to get by. Where a health crisis isn't going to bankrupt you, where you don't have to worry about choosing between paying your utility bill and paying your mortgage, or getting groceries, or paying for your medicine. Like that, I don't know. I would rather live in a world where there's human flourishing rather than human conflict.
Where else in the world is 70% of the wealth concentrated in 1% of the population?
Yeah. Maybe Russia?
Yeah.
With the oligarchs in Russia? Right.
Not in democracies, I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. I feel like what you just identified there with priorities, and you're sort of like, would you rather have, is vision talk. Like that's the kind of thing. That's why I said, please take that and cut that out and send it wherever you need to, because in my mind, the Democratic Party's got 2 factions. They've got defense, which is Gavin Newsom, Cory Booker, Jasmine Crockett, and then they've got the visionaries, which is AOC and Mamdani, and we can add your name to the list, right? Like Tallarico, the people who say this is the vision for the future. I want to live in a place like X. So sorry, I know I've talked a lot this episode. Religion is something that I feel like is so important to me, because it's how I grew up, and I've gone through the same kind of deconstruction, and so I think you and I are in kind of unique perspectives, because you can say, I know how the other side thinks. Yes. I know where they're coming from.
Yes, I like to say I'm bilingual. I'll tell you a story. I'm committed to talking about this stuff, not using the typical progressive language, because there's so much baggage with it. And so I'm trying to frame everything in my campaign when I talk to voters through the shared values of faith, family, and freedom. And I think that I think I can make the case for all of these progressive issues through
100%.
And so I did this TV interview, and I'm a cigar smoker. The TV interview aired, and I walked into the cigar shop after it aired, and one of the guys in the shop, who's a regular, said to me, "Hey, Robb," a conservative Republican dude I've known for years. He said, "Robb, I saw you on TV." He said, "That was great. I agreed with everything you said." I just looked at him, and I was like, "Randy, you know I was talking about free healthcare and free housing, right?" But it's, and he was like, this stuff makes sense to people. It appeals to an imagination within people that wants that wants humanity to flourish and want people's lives to be better. People care about their neighbors. They do.
Yeah.
And if we can call on those, I hate the phrase better angels, but if we can appeal to that sense in people that can imagine a better world, and we do it without like all of the political baggage of like,
Party
some of the
labels.
language that gets used. And I know my opponent is going to send out the mailer with a picture of me and AOC together. There's some of those pictures out there on the internet. Frankly, I've posted some of them because, it's kind of fun.
It's cool.
And I know he's gonna send out that mailer, and it's gonna call me a socialist and call me far left. And the reality is, like, I'm imagining a better world that will make a difference in the lives of the people that live here in Arkansas's 3rd district, and I think the lives of everybody across the country, which I think the job of government is.
But that's just the thing, Rob. It's if you were to strip away party labels and then just put out the best ideas out there, I think most people would agree with them.
Yes. Here in Arkansas, raising the minimum wage was a ballot initiative. It got over 60% of the vote.
And that's why I love ballot initiatives.
Legalizing marijuana, medical marijuana, a ballot initiative got over 60% of the vote. When the issues are on the ballot, and this is why the political identity, trying to get around the political identity thing is important, because when the issues are on the ballot, people will vote differently. And so that's why
we've seen it in Kansas, we've seen it in Michigan, we've seen it here in Georgia, even, you see it everywhere. Those ballot initiatives.
Yeah. And that's what, like here in Arkansas, our state legislature is working really hard at eliminating the ballot initiative process because they know that when the issues are on the ballot. So we've got like this congressional campaign it's not about me as a person. It's about like how we can make life better for people and having a representative who cares about those things and is willing to put in the work.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. So in a district like yours, which Cook has as I want to say an R+13, where party labels can be a barrier. How do you build trust with the voters and who maybe never considered voting for a Democrat, and keeping in mind that we're in a political environment right now where R+15 or R+20 doesn't mean a whole lot right now.
It's the political climate continues to be really, really strong for upsets.
And John Harris moved the district by 25 points here in Georgia. If that tells you anything. He didn't win the election, but he moved it 25 points to the left. In a special.
And we've seen, historically Republican districts flip, in state and local elections all around the country. What it is, it's showing up. It's having the conversations. It's putting in the work and talking about these things and not pandering. Like I don't we can disagree, I hope that there are voters who say, I don't agree with Robb on everything, but I'm willing to vote for him because I know that he cares about my opinion.
Yeah.
My district currently has a representative who doesn't care about the opinions of people who disagree with him.
No, Womack really doesn't care at all.
Yeah, not at all. And they forward me the email responses that they get, which they write in asking a particular question, and they get a canned email response that is just tangentially related to it. And, it's, so I think, it's a matter of saying to people, listen, we're not always going to agree on stuff, but I'm not going to be an asshole to you if we disagree.
Right.
And I'm let's talk about it. I'm willing to listen.
Being reasonable, when you are the most reasonable person in the room, you raise the bar, because nobody wants to be seen as unreasonable. And as soon as you become the most reasonable person in the room, you win, man. Like you just do. And one of the things that people said so much about Donald Trump was he loves this country. And that's the same way that I hear you talking about people. I hear that same feeling about people.
Yeah. It's getting beyond the policies, the shared values of like, hey, we might disagree on lots of things, but man, there are some shared values underneath that are really important. Like faith, like our belief in faith isn't about what you believe on Sundays or Saturdays. It's about our trust, our belief in each other, and how we can work together as a result of that. So much of that has been undermined by Donald Trump and the system that we're in. I talk about families. Families come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and colors, and the 1950s, 2.3 kids and a dog in the yard kind of family. That's not what my family looks like. I know very few people that's what their family looks like. But we've got to take care of working families. We've got to take care of immigrant families. We've got to make sure that families are protected in all of the different shapes and sizes and colors that they come in. And then freedom, we're not as free as we used to be in the United States of America. We're not as free as we should be. And we need to have a government that just lets people live their lives. And I mean, these are like shared values that all of us believe in, that all of us want. And like, we might have different ideas on how it all plays out, but like, let's at the very least agree that, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And these are things that we can agree on, and let's go from there.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of approach, I think it can win the day in places that historically have been thought to be red.
Absolutely. So Rob, if someone in your district's still undecided and they only hear one thing from you today, one message, what do you want them to walk away from this interview understanding about you and why you're running?
Yeah. Listen, I fully believe that every person in my district deserves to have a representative who will actually represent them. I mean, representative is literally the job title. Yeah. And what we have is a congressperson, is a representative who has refused to talk to people, refused to listen to different opinions, and done simply the bidding of his party leadership and his corporate donors. And as a result, we've got a huge mess on our hands around the country. I don't expect that, folks are going to agree with me all the time. I don't expect that, I'm always going to vote in a way that make people happy. But I do know that I will be the kind of representative who is in this for you. Like, the question is, does your congressman work for you? And unless you're the CEO of Walmart or the CEO of Tyson here in my district, the answer is probably no. My congressman doesn't work for me. I'm running because I want to work for the people of this district.
There you go, folks. Robb Ryerse. Thanks, Robb, again for joining us.
I've enjoyed the conversation.
It's a conversation everybody needed to hear. But I need you to tell everybody how they can reach out to you.
There you go. Yeah, go check out
let
Robb.
You leave without that.
RobbForCongress.com, and it's ROBB, 2 B's on Robb. I joke that the second B is silent because that's a stupid little joke. But RobbForCongress.com. Would love for folks to learn more there. You can get my socials there and follow me. And please, smash that donate button, because I'm not taking millions of dollars from corporate interests. This is a grassroots campaign, and frankly, we need it. We need the money.
Yeah.
And the system is the way it is, and we need money to compete and to win. And so I need folks to donate. So please do that.
Campaigns do cost money. Robb is an HTL endorsed candidate, full disclosure there. So, we're happy that he's running. Robb's been a friend of mine for a while, so I think he's a great man, but I want everybody else to see just how great a person he is. And I know he'll be an exceptional representative in Washington. So with that, Robb, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Robb. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Maddie.
Godspeed, brother. Yeah.
Every time you do this to me.
Yeah. That's
I'm sorry. I feel like I talked the whole damn episode.
Oh, you don't have to apologize for that. That was an important conversation that people needed to hear. I mean, that topic, I want more people to understand, faith in politics. I mean, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. However, there's a right and a wrong way.
No, totally. And those books, by the way, for people who are still watching, and it's by Tim Alberta, Alberta, The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory. And then the other one is Kevin Kruse, Kruse. And the book is called One Nation Under God. And those two books really shaped my perspective on the role of religion and the separation of church and state in our society, and how we got to where we are with Christian nationalism. Those two books will explain to you everything you need to know, really.
Yeah, I've read the one. I loved it. It was
whatever one doesn't have, the other one will fill in. And they're amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of people who I think will be great representatives, my good friend Olivia Troy is running for Congress now in Virginia's newly formed 7th, or I guess whenever that finishes getting that state map gets approved. So want to wish Olivia the best of luck there. And we've really come to the end of our hour already, but that was a great conversation.
It was wonderful.
We didn't have a whole lot of news to get into. Maddie, you want to cover some of the news before we sign off?
Sure. Where should we start?
Where do we start with so much that's been going on this week?
I mean,
how about Hungary's elections?
Hungary's elections. So I am thrilled. This is the best news in politics that I've heard since Mamdani got elected, honestly, that Viktor Orban lost, because he is a horrible man.
Yes.
Horrible. And JD Vance is like, that's my best bud.
Oh, that's our boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, his trip over there didn't work. What was the whole thing with him calling Trump on the phone and getting voicemail?
That was hilarious.
How stupid was that? I mean,
JD Vance is such a womp womp human. It's almost sad.
He's one of those guys, and I think, and I hope he runs for president after Trump. He's like that Ron DeSantis type feel. Everybody was huge on Ron DeSantis, and then he was kind of like, then they realized, this guy is kind of, he doesn't have that whatever it is, that je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, exactly. That
personality.
That's because he's just like Peter Thiel's lab creation.
Exactly.
You guys, you heard me be all compassionate about humans, and then I talk about JD Vance, and you're like, she doesn't like him. Do not care for him.
And I guess we can't leave without talking about, if we're talking about Vance, it's these peace talks that they say they're on again, off again. Vance is a failure on that this week as well. I mean,
yeah, he's really everything he touches. It's just
imploding.
Yep, it's bad. And actually, I'll do a quick plug for Substack. So I'm starting a series this week. I've just published the first article, and it's basically trying to uncover who's pulling the strings behind everything that you're seeing. And I've been working on it for 2 years, and it's finally coming out. I've had a bunch of people review it first to make it's for accuracy and to make sure that it's understandable. And I'm really excited about it. So we're going to go over Epstein myths and tech bros and Russia and all that stuff in a very manageable, synthesized, only the information that you absolutely need in order to be able to understand what's going on right now kind of way.
I can't wait to see it, and we'll be pushing that out on our channels, because that's kind of how Maddie came to my attention in the first place. She's been talking about this stuff and pushing back for a while. So
thank you. Yeah.
I'm hugely enthusiastic. Can't wait to see what you got there.
Thank you.
And I guess we'd be remiss, Maddie, if we didn't talk about Trump Trump doctor. So my goodness. Jesus doctor. My God.
I shall heal you, Jeffrey Epstein.
That does look like everybody's been talking about this. You know,
why do the angels look so
like Jeffrey Epstein? Jon Stewart did a funny thing, thinking it looked like him, but
Jon Stewart was so funny talking about this. He's hysterical. I love it.
He was hilarious with it. But come on. You know, on Easter, going after, not only is he going after the Pope, but then posting.
The thing is, he knows what he's doing, right? Like, he knows that he's not just triggering the libs, right? He knows that he's pissing people off within his own coalition. And there's a couple of possibilities for reasons for that. But I do know that the Catholic Church has been a threat to authoritarianism forever, in the same way that Judaism has been, because you are loyal to something outside of the state. And so the Pope has always been a threat to authoritarians. And it makes sense that he would try to undermine the Pope on a day when, he's supposed to be the most revered. In Orthodox Easter, the Pope is a different one. So it makes sense, actually, that he would knock the Pope on Orthodox Easter specifically.
But, calling him weak on crime.
Weak on crime.
Terrible for foreign policy.
What are you talking about? They really don't care about people. They genuinely don't.
That's just that, to me, that says, owning the libs. I get that they try to do some of that too, but I don't know. Our buddy Aaron Parner said Trump was sundowning. I was like, yeah, I can see that. Dementia Don is what I've been calling him for a while. So
I saw an interesting video of a lady who works with dementia patients, and she watched him standing next to the DoorDash lady. Mm-hmm. And the DoorDash lady did this sort of like spinny thing with her body, and then he did the same thing. And they said that that's something that like Alzheimer's and dementia patients do unconsciously, is immediately mirror the body language, not even in the same moment, but immediately after, because it allows them to anchor. And I was like, oh shit, sorry. I was like, oh, that's some science right there.
We all speak French here on this channel.
Sorry, I was like, oops.
We all speak French here on this channel. No need to.
Good, okay.
Apologize for that, but yeah, I think it's true, and you gotta believe that, the chief of staff or Stephen Miller and all those other, Carolyn Levitt, they all know.
They know.
That entire White House knows that this guy is unhinged, and we should be talking about the 25th Amendment, because we know 100%. An impeachment's not going to work. So, yeah. No, that's
that was an excellent episode.
Other sad news, and I think we touched on it. Not sad, disgusting, I would say, and I'm very disappointed in the news coming out about Eric Swalwell. I'm glad that he's doing the right thing, even though he's been forced to do the right thing by resigning, not only resigning from Congress, but getting out of the governor's race in California. Those allegations are, if true, and I believe the women, I believe they are true.
55 staffers, 55 signed a letter saying he's got to go. The work that got done on social media between women who were just helping each other is extraordinary. I was like, man, there is a case to be made for keeping social media, because the people who worked on this were extraordinary in getting justice for these women and for making sure that people like him are not in power. So major props to them. I think it was Mrs. Frizzle was the one who uncovered it.
I saw that before, before the story became a story. I caught it on one of the her channels. It ended up in one of my feeds. And I saw it, and I was like, okay. And someone else reached out to me and said, have you heard about this? And I was like, yeah, if this is true, this is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we just had the conversation with Robb. It goes back to integrity. Be who
100%.
you say you are. Do the right thing, even when no one's looking.
You and nobody's
I
watching.
tell my kids, like, integrity for you should mean stopping at that stop sign, even though nobody's there.
Mm-hmm. Because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I mean, and that's how I teach our kids integrity. And members of Congress, you got to be who you say you are.
Yeah.
If you're going to represent people, and that's just,
Goodbye to Jim. So long.
Goodbye. I just
Wow.
can't abide by any of that. Can't abide by any of it. And I know Eric Swalwell. I thought he was a good guy.
People can be deceived.
Yeah. So
people can be deceived.
I've met a lot of members up there, and everybody. He was one of the guys that was pushing back against MAGA and bringing the fight, and I was all for that, but that ain't it.
Yeah,
man. Sexual assault and rape. That's no.
Goodbye.
Farewell.
Totally agree. Yeah.
He's going to have a lot of, as I say, he's going to go through some things over the next, months and years, I guess. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if everybody's innocent until proven guilty, but if guilty of these things, deservedly so.
Agreed.
Again, and I believe the women here. I mean, I don't think they're making that stuff up.
No. Ain't no way.
I saw a thing where someone said, I think it was Adam Parkmenko who wrote it, because his wife Ali Samarco was one of the victims, and he said, "How did your lawyers know where to send the cease and desist letters to?"
What a question! What a question!
So, yeah.
Woo.
Bad stuff. And I guess with that, people, that's going to be our show. And again, people, we're in a time right now where we can't take our foot off the gas. We still got to go out there. There's a lot of fighting left to be done. They're attacking mail-in ballots.
Yep.
Trump and his congressional Republicans, keep trying to push this SAVE Act, which is, it's going to hurt a lot of people. So, and it's going to disenfranchise a lot of voters. So we got to keep fighting, stay vigilant, take care of our veterans, because, they're going after veterans too. They're trying to take our benefits away from us, those of us who've earned them. Stay vigilant, people. Support good candidates like Robb. Olivia Troy's going to be out there. Our other endorsed candidates at HTL, go check them out. Send them $1 or $2 if you can, because we need good leaders like Robb and the other endorsed candidates at HTL that we bring on the show.
And repost their content.
Yeah, we post their content. So follow, like their stuff, and go give them some money, and also support HTL so we can continue supporting our candidates, doing the things that they can't do. And with that, Maddie, you got anything else for us today?
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me in all of my questions and all the dialogue and everything. It's therapeutic and helpful. And thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And please check out the Substack when it comes out. It's Maddie's Hot Take, and we'll see you next week.
That's it. That's our show for today. Big thanks to Robb for joining us and bringing real perspective to the conversation, and what a conversation it was, by the way.
And thank you to our producers.
Yep. Thanks, Keith, and to all of you that tuned in. You're staying informed right now. It's not a passive activity. It takes effort. It takes attention. And yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit of patience. So, guys, until next week, stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, with all due respect, goodbye.